Do you cut yourself down when looking in the mirror or just say terrible things to yourself about yourself in a voice that's shaming? Or here's a more important question. Do you block connection in relationships because shame gets in the way? Here's an example. Let's say you said something that you put your foot in your mouth. It's relatively minor. But what happens is that this critical voice takes over and starts escalating. And your mind goes from words that you said were wrong to, in fact, now you're judging yourself for being wrong. You make a cognitive leap. Where you're no longer focusing on just the behavior, but you start picking at your character, like you're picking yourself apart, and this can feel really harsh. There's a harsh judgment. And when you're doing this, if this creates this avalanche of negativity directed at yourself, this is what attachment psychology calls a shame spiral. It's this harsh self-criticism, and it just keeps gaining momentum. It pulls you deeper into believing that you're fundamentally flawed. That's the phrase here. The belief that you are fundamentally flawed. And that's what the definition of toxic shame is. If you're trapped criticizing yourself, then the truth is in relationships, you're just not present. You're busy policing your own thoughts and behaviors and actions, and you're second guessing yourself. You're not even available for relationship when you're in this shame spiral. This is all about self-sabotage. It cuts you off from being emotionally available to other people. So these shame spirals, the truth is they only have power if we give them power, and they run wild if we don't confront them. This video is about confronting them. There's a way to recognize your critical voice as an intrusive visitor, and I want to show you how to interrupt this shame spiral pattern so that it doesn't continue to harm your relationships. I'm Alan Robarge, an attachment-focused psychotherapist and a relationship educator, and I work with people who report that they die inside when a relationship ends. It's very, very painful. They suffocate before the end of the relationship. And I help those hurt by love rebuild what heartbreak shattered and forge a stronger sense of self. This is all about attachment wounds and attachment injuries. My work also includes helping people who get stuck in shame spirals get unstuck so that they are better able to connect more emotionally and be present in relationships. So on this video, let's uncover shame spirals, talk more about the development of how this even happens in the first place, how they damage our relationships, and then name very specifically 3 steps you can take to break out of this pattern. Those 3 steps I'm labeling are interrupt, redirect, and connect, and I will explain more a little later. I think you would agree that we're not born disliking ourselves. And sometimes we could even turn up the volume on that language and say we're not born hating ourselves. Shame is something that's learned, and it's something that we inherit in a family system from caregivers, from family members. When parents or caregivers are emotionally unavailable, critical, they can be rejecting, then children absorb these messages. And the translation of the message is, oh, there must be something wrong with me. And this becomes wired into our nervous system as a kind of twisted protection so that I start criticizing myself. And it's a way to keep my expectations low. And it's a way to keep myself in check so I don't get in trouble or I don't lose whatever connection I already have. And so I'm attempting to avoid rejection pain from others. But there's a real irony here, and it's a cruel irony, that what happens is that we prevent potential future rejection by guaranteeing harsh self-punishment today. And this is incredibly torturous. John Bradshaw wrote a book, I like to think of him as the godfather of shame research, and he talks about toxic shame and he talks about healthy shame, but he refers to the experience of a shame based person. It feels like internal bleeding, that there's something about you that is just in a chronic state of feeling off, feeling hurt, feeling wounded, but you judge yourself on top of feeling off, feeling hurt, and feeling wounded. So shame then becomes about hiding. It's about being guarded. We don't reveal our shame, but we also don't want to reveal our truth, our feelings, our needs, our emotions. A shame-based person will safeguard against exposing their shame, just because, quite honestly, obviously, it's just too painful and too embarrassing. So shame is the opposite of transparency, and we need to be transparent if we want to be in healthy relationships. So shame very much undermines healthy relationships. If we're too busy criticizing ourselves, and then we're not fully available to others, we're distracted, and our attention gets pulled into that criticism. We are pulling ourselves away from being open and from those that we care about. This is compromising your ability to consider other people's needs, or to even assert your own needs. Shame is a relationship. It creates avoidance. It's a kind of avoidant attachment. You're not leading and initiating connection. You're very much monitoring and trying to hedge your bets and limit how vulnerable and open that you can be. This avoidance makes sense if you grew up in a family that avoided you, and if your inner world, who you are, was ignored emotionally, and that means it doesn't feel safe to be open and share with others who you are emotionally. If you grew up in a family that shamed you for just being who you are, then you experienced what we would call emotional invalidation, and that's very painful. You learned quickly that being yourself is not welcome in relationships. So therefore, you struggle with an internal insecurity and a self-doubt around asserting and revealing your attachment needs, but also just revealing yourself, and just that it's safe, that you can trust, that you can be you in relationship with someone else. If your attachment needs don't matter, then it's very easy to make the leap and conclude, well, then it feels like I don't matter. You feel like you don't matter. You avoid being emotionally available in adult relationships because you've internalized this shame's messaging. And the messaging comes with this set of beliefs. The belief is that you're unlovable, that you're broken, you're defective, you're cracked, you're a bad person. So this toxic shame, the distinction between healthy shame and toxic shame. Healthy shame says there's some limitation. Healthy shame says, hey, wait a minute, we just want to do a review and make sure that we keep you in check. Are you in alignment? Are you with your values? Are you in integrity around your choices? And sometimes there's some like healthy regret that comes in there. It's like, oops, I'm not in integrity, or I'm going against my values. And so healthy shame is an invitation to recalibrate and say, well, let's come back into alignment. Toxic shame is different. Toxic shame is an attack on your character. And it's no longer about the thing that you did or your values or looking at a situation. It's not like an applied practice. It's more of a concluding belief that says there's something fundamentally wrong with you. So not that you've done something bad, but that you are bad. And do you see, if you believe this and you want to be loved, you want to be in a relationship, you want to date, you want to build some future with someone, but if you have this operating in the shadows of who you are, it could be even covert, you don't even fully realize how much shame that there is. Or if you are aware of it, it's going to get in the way of you practicing healthy relating, because essentially you don't have a healthy relationship with yourself. And this will gain momentum. It's like this internal voice just keeps getting stronger and stronger, to where you yourself become the target of this aggression. And there's this contempt directed at yourself. And when this happens, you feel worthless. Shame is very insidious, very powerful, and very scary. Because if you're going through life feeling like you're worthless, it's going to be really hard to feel good about yourself and make choices and put yourself out there and risk intimacy and vulnerability. If intimacy and vulnerability mean that once you open up, you reveal a worthlessness, well, no one wants to do that because it's too frightening and painful. So we can, here's the good news, we can overcome shame-based thinking. We can change. We can confront those beliefs. It's faulty thinking. When you understand that this voice that's criticizing you, it is not a wisdom voice. And it is not your wisdom trying to protect you. Instead, it is the wound voice. It is the shame voice that's trying to control you. And you can practice you can learn to not listen to this voice as the truth, this critical voice. So the wisdom voice is speaking with compassionate acceptance, and it sees possibility and it sees workability. The wound voice is constantly monitoring how you fall short. It's like keeping score. It's focusing on scarcity and missed opportunities. It's reminding you of failures. The wound voice is operating from this very myopic, rigid, tight view. It only sees a little bit, it's not expansive. And this perspective leaves no room for growth. The wisdom voice, however, that is a voice of spaciousness. And this is not just an idea, you're going to feel it in your bones and in your being, in your chest. There's a kind of like when you're in your wisdom self and able to problem solve and be creative and not be so hard on yourself, this creates a sense of internal room, like you have room to explore, you have room to experiment, you have room to be creative, you have room to make mistakes, and it's not a big deal. When you learn to distinguish between these two voices, the critical shame voice and the wisdom voice, you'll stop taking shame's criticism as truth, or at least that's the practice. You challenge it, like, is this really true? You'll have space to make mistakes, as I've already said, and when mistakes happen, you won't spiral like you have in the past, where you'll start to approach challenges with possibility instead of with fear. Now, if we do not learn how to distinguish these two voices, and for me, literally, it shows up as a kind of voice in my head, and I just like high shame voice. I know you're there. I don't believe you. You're not. You're totally lying to me. And I start to practice and discern, like, well, what does it feel like when I'm in my wisdom voice, and what does it feel like when I'm in the shame voice? If you do not practice starting to differentiate between these two voices, you're going to spend your life, maybe your whole life, making major decisions based on the bad advice of shame's wound. So a lot is at stake here. When we have shame's voice, when it takes control, it changes how you show up in relationships. You might start over explaining simple requests. You will withdraw from minor disagreements. You might obscure truth and reality just because you're trying to obscure revealing that you're experiencing shame. You might create diversion and distraction by creating some big fight or some other argument just so that you don't have to reveal that shame got triggered. You will monitor your words and during conversations and start editing yourself. You don't feel a sense of freedom in the way that you speak. You're hard on yourself and you're not very forgiving. This wound voice will turn everyday relationship moments into evidence that you're not good enough. Now, people that I've worked with clients, and I hear this a lot, and it's sort of fascinating. Like if we say, well, what's the image of shame? What does it feel like? What's a metaphor for shame? A lot of people report a heaviness, being weighted down. It might be like carrying a boulder, or there's this boulder in your chest, and you just feel burdened. Also, image of a cape or a cloak or a big wet blanket. This coat of shame that we carry with us, that a lot of people talk about that. It's also a visceral physical experience of a nauseousness. I've had some clients refer to it as there's this nauseous gremlin living in their gut. And whenever shame gets triggered and activated, they very quickly feel sick to their stomach. So you might also notice it's a kind of voice in your head. It could be in the background. It's kind of like a whisper, is and it's saying you're a fraud, you're a loser, oh, you shouldn't have said that, you're so stupid. And sometimes the voice is loud, sometimes it's yelling at us, but a lot of people report it as it's just this ongoing whisper that quite honestly doesn't shut up. And the point of this video and what we're talking about is starting to practice some boundaries to not believe it, and also to push back on it a little bit and say, not now. I need you to be quiet. I need you to back off. I know you're telling me I hate myself. I know. Thank you so much. But, I got things to do here today. Now, this is always easier said than done, but we're beginning to practice differentiating, standing up for ourselves and pushing back on this voice. If any of this sounds familiar, please know you're not alone in this struggle. Many of us, me included, have had some history of shame. If you have any history of attachment injuries, attachment wounds, attachment trauma, shame impacts and is folded into oftentimes because of relationship, and it impacts our identity. So learning to work with shame can very much bring up difficult feelings and make you think about all your relationships. And you'll start to think about missed opportunities where shame took your voice, or it felt like shame made you say the wrong thing, and you'll have regret. Part of the healing work here is let in the missed opportunities, let in the awareness of the judgments, let in about the times. Here's the hard one, that you probably pushed people away. Your shame got in the way of being available in relationship, and in some capacity, you've pushed other people away. You have pushed other people away. And if this is true, please be gentle with yourself. Extend some empathy to you. This is all part of the healing process. The path forward involves developing unconditional friendliness towards yourself. That's actually the antidote. That's the direction that we're going here. This is a practice. This is not an idea. And what this means is feeling unconditional friendliness towards yourself, which is the opposite of being hard on yourself. And when I say that this is a practice, not an idea, it's like if you're learning French and you got to take a French lesson, or you got to practice French, you got to carve out some time to say, okay, I'm going to learn some new vocabulary. It's the same thing with this shame. It's like you have to set some time aside to say, I'm going to practice trying on some more positive, loving, supportive, kinder responses to who I am. And I'm going to counterbalance out any judgment that shame's creating. And I'm going to I'm going to start practicing standing up for myself. So this unconditional friendliness towards yourself is something that you're going to start doing on a regular basis. So how do we work with these shame spirals using this unconditional friendliness towards yourself? I've mapped out 3 steps, and I consider them to be pretty clear solutions. The first step is just interrupt the process. When you notice shame spiraling into an extreme negativity, recognize that you're entering an emergency state of mind. Like I think of it as a tornado. The word spiral, shame spiral. You're waiting out this tornado so that the shame voice is not as strong as it once was. You're trying to interrupt how quick you are to believe, like what shame is saying. Next is differentiating this voice from your wisdom voice. So that's number 1, the interrupt. Number 2 is redirect. You want to catch yourself being hard on yourself and then do the opposite on purpose. So when you notice self-criticism, you're going to stop and you're going to say something kind to yourself instead, and make a list of your good qualities. And I can imagine you right now, I can hear you saying, well, I don't have any good qualities. And I'm just going to push back on that and say, well, then make some up. If you really don't, I mean, I challenge that. I bet you do. But if you really think you don't have any good qualities, then go ahead and use your creativity and your imagination. And you got to start making a few up so that you can practice, begin to seeing like your aspirational self. Because your shame self is not reliable. And back to the wisdom voice, to have a little more expansiveness, we want you to be able to interrupt the self criticism and start directing more kindness towards yourself. You know how to direct negativity. That is a function of your mind. I've asked many people this, say, like, well, do you know how how those moments when you're hard on yourself? And like 99% of people go, yeah, of course. Yeah. And they can describe very specifically, like, how they do it, how they think about it. They can describe like how a shame spiral starts taking off, and then for the next 2 or 3 hours they're like really down on themselves. So that's a function of mind. That's actually like a skill. It feels out of your control, like you are not controlling it, but it's still something that you're doing to yourself. And if you know how to direct negativity towards yourself, is it possible you could align with the wisdom voice and invite the wisdom voice through kindness to direct some positivity towards yourself? That's what we're talking about here. So to talk to yourself like you would talk to someone that you care about, you're going to turn yourself from someone that you criticize into someone that you protect. This is about self-advocacy and protecting yourself. And this practice is going to feel weird at first. It's just going to feel new and weird and different, and say, well, do it anyway, because what you're doing is you're training a new habit. The third step that we're talking about here is connect. And it's basically learn how to be a friend to yourself by proxy of observing how other people can be friends with you. So practice unconditional friendliness towards yourself by connecting with people instead of hiding from them. We're trying to interrupt that control that shame can have to keep you guarded and to not reveal your vulnerability. You need to find some people that you can trust in a very slow way to practice opening up. And as you practice opening up, you're going to have the experience also of you're simultaneously opening up to yourself. And you're going to learn how to be a friend to yourself by actually being around friends. You spend time with people who see your worth and who enjoy you, who laugh at your jokes, who smile at you when you walk in the room. When I'm working with clients, I notice breakthroughs happen when they stop treating shame as truth and they start treating themselves as worthy of the same kindness that they would show a friend. So you can take that with you all day and say, is this how a friend would talk to a friend? Is this how a friend would treat a friend? Is this the kind of choices that a friend would make for a friend? And over time, you're going to notice a pattern changing and looking out for yourself and feeling better about yourself and advocating for yourself. So this is not, as you know, this is not a quick fix, but it is a workable treatment plan that is going to hopefully for you address shame at its core. So these 3 steps are interrupt, redirect, and connect. Step 1 is about recognizing shame spirals as cognitive distortion. Step 2 is about turning self-criticism into self-kindness. And step 3 is about choosing relationships over isolation. Do you remember earlier I mentioned that shame is about hiding? It is about being guarded in your relationships. Shame convinces you that monitoring yourself is a form of protection, but it's actually preventing you from being present with other people. So shame doesn't protect you from connection. It actually rejects connection before you can experience it. And if you really hear that statement, shame doesn't protect you from connection. It rejects connection before you can even experience it. And then many of us, when we are let in this awareness, it makes sense of why we feel so misunderstood, so unfulfilled, even very lonely in our relationships. Sue Johnson, was a pioneer in attachment research. She created emotionally focused couples therapy. And one of a quote from her that I really like is, in insecure relationships, we disguise our vulnerabilities so that our partner never really sees us. And if you're doing shame is a way. Shame the a byproduct of shame is that we are hiding and disguising who we are, ultimately so that we don't have to reveal ourselves to ourselves, but in that process we're not revealing ourselves to other people. So as Sue Johnson says, in insecure relationship we disguise our vulnerabilities so our partner never really sees us. And as I tell couples during counseling sessions, the only way to be chosen is to be seen. That relationship is about exposure. It is about transparency. When you understand how shame sabotages your attachment bonds with others by sabotaging the connection that you have with yourself, then healing work becomes primarily about changing your relationship with yourself. Shame is called the self-esteem disease because it eats away at our identity. Learning to practice unconditional friendliness towards yourself is strengthening your identity. So this work is often easier said than done. So therefore, you need to go slowly. You need to be gentle with yourself and practice the 3 steps that I mentioned earlier. Thank you for watching the video, valuing my work. I hope that this video is helpful. I appreciate the kind words from many supporters that have shown me throughout the years. I did introduce myself earlier. I'll just repeat it. I'm Alan Robarge. I'm an attachment-focused psychotherapist and a relationship educator. I see both individuals and couples. My work focuses on grieving life's inevitable changes, strengthening attachment bonds, and honoring how our identities change as we age. Shame has also been a recurring theme in my work because it is what happens to us when attachment trauma goes unaddressed. YouTube, thank you, has been very helpful to me. So thank you to YouTube. It has afforded me the opportunity to connect with many people around the world. Since my videos are about relationships and the struggles that we face, this transcends cultural borders. The very popular phrase, the saying goes, love is love is love is love. Doesn't matter, the culture or the community or the country. Please do all of the things if you're getting benefit from my channel, from this video, which is the click like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I know you've heard it 800 times. These actions do help my channel grow. Also, there's a new thing in YouTube called Boost. You can boost a video in the first week it's posted, and that helps get more views. So I am, making a plea for, please, help boost my videos. Thanks in advance for spreading the word. You can post a link of a video on another social media site. Also, I created a great resource. I did a video not too long ago. It's about being stuck, triggered, and crushed. It's about what brings us to therapy. It's great. How do we begin to work on the way we feel about ourselves, the development of self, and ultimately how that connects to relationships and how do you show up in relationships. And one of the main 3 reasons why people seek me out, or for many people who come into therapy, it's because they feel stuck, triggered, and crushed, or one of the 3. So I created a workbook. It's called Finding Yourself Workbook. It's a 45-page companion workbook to that particular video. And so see the description below, get your copy. And I also plan on making some videos about that workbook. So if you have a copy in advance, you're kind of like prepared. Thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more videos. I do like to plant seeds of future videos. So it's like let's talk about healing childhood wounds. Let's talk about emotional regulation. I also really interested in looking at how we confuse pity for love, and operating from a place of trying to take care of someone else. But in fact, we're disconnecting from allowing ourselves to be taken care of as well. So our needs aren't getting met. Very one-sided relating. So I hope that this was helpful. Shame spirals, toxic shame, and learning how to break that pattern. Listen to your wisdom voice. Be kind and direct, unconditional friendliness towards yourself. See you next time. Thank you.